Excellent. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Finance, Assets and Performance Scrutiny Committee at Newcastle Borough Council. The last meeting, I did hope that we'd be able to have our December meeting in the presence of all members. Sadly, that's not been possible due to the pandemic, but here we are, demonstrating civic leadership in a COVID-secure way. With me in the room this evening, for the benefit of those who are watching us on the screen. To screen left is Councillor Graham Hutton, who's a member of the committee, and to screen right are Councillors Stephen Sweeney and Simon Tagg, the Deputy Leader and Leader, who are here to receive our scrutiny tonight. Everybody else is dialing in remotely. Item number 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence. We are still waiting for a couple of members to join us who are having technical difficulties, but we can breeze through some of the housekeeping while they are doing that. Has anybody received any apologies for absence? There are no apologies for absence. There are no substitute members with us tonight either. Declarations of interest. Does anybody have any declarations of interest for items appearing on tonight's agenda? You can indicate yes by raising your hand physically or by using the tool available to you for hand raising, and I will endeavour to see both of those, although I can't see the complete list of participants in the meeting. So do feel free to wave at me. No declarations of interest. Minutes of the previous meeting appear at pages 3 to 8 of the agenda. Does anybody have any comments or amendments for the minutes? Again, I can't see anybody. I've got one, which is at the bottom of page 7, item 9, the work programme. Councillor Hutton did previously indicate an interest in looking into procurement. I don't think I said that I certainly wanted it to come back in June, and indeed there is a recording of the meeting, so if I'm wrong, I'm sure I'll be corrected. But that is for a future date. Councillor Hutton, given that we are looking at that set of minutes now and you weren't present for that meeting, is this still something that you were keen on seeing us do some scrutiny into?
I would like to, but I had agreed with the head of procurement that he would do some work. Unfortunately, coronavirus has thrown that totally out of kilter, and I think we have to settle down a little bit. It's just about how we can get consistency from conception of a project or programme of work through to getting the benefits and where procurement can fit into that. So we are in agreement of what we'd like to do. It's just that until we can get back to normal, it's going to be very difficult to undertake anything like that. So I would imagine that round about May we'll know what we can do and what we can't do. I can't see it happening much before then.
No, well, that makes sense to me. Thank you very much for that, Councillor Hutton. And with that small adjustment, are the minutes agreed? Can we agree the minutes?
Move.
Excellent. Councillor Proctor's moved the minutes. Do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second them, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded by Councillor Fear. All those in favour? Yes. Marvellous. Minutes are approved. Item number 4 is the update from Cabinet. Leader, would you like to give us an update?
Thank you, Mark. Nothing to update other than what's on the agenda, which is quite meaty about the finance, MTFS, revenue, capital budgets, and then obviously a look at the performance review. So we'll obviously be feeding into that later, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on that? A lot of it's covered by things that we're going to be coming on to, so I don't think there is anything.
Just ask Mark, I can hear you perfectly, but Councillor Tagg, it was a bit muffled then. I don't know if there's a microphone.
Oh, right. Oh, well, there's a microphone in the middle of the desk. I'm projecting because I'm an actor. I'll encourage other people who are with me physically to raise their voices slightly, as uncomfortable as it may be for the rest of us sitting in the room.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll do in the future. Is that better?
Can I increase the take on that now?
Oh, I've no idea. I wouldn't touch it. I think it'll cause us terrible trouble if we make it go wrong. There's nobody physically in the room to fix it. Item number 5 is the medium-term financial strategy. Councillor Sweeney, would you like to introduce this item?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Am I speaking loud enough so everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. The council's draft MTFS for 21-22 to 25-26 was endorsed by Cabinet on the 11th of November and indicated there was a budget gap of £1.790 million in respect of 21-22 that would need to be closed in order to produce a balanced budget. How we close that is I think the next item on the agenda. The council has received more than £4.5 million in additional government support to date to address the immediate financial impact of COVID. This includes an additional £408,000 of emergency funding announced in October. I think it's fair to say that the government has listened to councils, it's listened to the MPs, it's listened to the LGA, and has realised that we need support and has given us the support. So it's done what it said it would do, and we thank it for that. Nevertheless, it is clear that COVID will continue to have a negative impact on the council's financial position for some time to come. In particular, it will take time for income levels to fully recover, and it remains to be seen what the longer term impact will be on the collection fund, both in terms of the collection rates and the cost of the local council tax support scheme. There's also uncertainty regarding government plans for local government funding. Plans for a 3-year spending review, business rates reset and fair funding have been put on the back burner. Setting a balanced budget for 21-22 has been challenging, but following a rigorous financial recovery board process, this has now been achieved and will be discussed under the next agenda item. It should be noted that the council has worked hard over the past 2 years to put its finances on a sound footing. We now have more realistic, now realistic is an important word for me, realistic income budgets, a 10-year capital strategy which allows us to plan ahead. We're using flexible capital receipts to fund initiatives that will deliver efficiency savings, e.g. digital, and we have increased our revenue reserves. There is more work to be done, but we are better placed than many to weather the storm. In the meantime, we'll be pressing ahead with our key priorities, including refurbishment of the Kidsgrove Leisure Centre and our ambitious plans to regenerate our town centres, which have been given a major boost by the announcement of £1.75 million of advanced town deal funding. That's £1 million to Newcastle and £750,000 to Kidsgrove. And on that, any questions of anybody, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Sweeney. Does anybody have any questions on the medium-term financial strategy? I can see in the room Councillor Hutton and then Paul Waring. I can see Councillor Hutton.
Thank you. Having spent some part of today reading through this very, very carefully, I'd like to commend the Deputy Leader for this medium-term financial strategy in such difficult times. I'm amazed that we've got as far as we have, and we are in the position as we are. So thanks to Councillor Sweeney and Sarah and the finance team, because to do this is very difficult. Thank you.
Can I just say something, Chair?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Hutton, and I endorse that. And I'd like to thank all the accounts, all the finance team who produced this. I think one thing we have on our reports now, they're in plain English. People can understand them. I could almost say you could read them at your leisure. They're actually quite interesting, which years ago I don't think they were. So I commend our finance team for that. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Sweeney. Councillor Waring, your question.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I was reading this at my leisure earlier, Steve, and there was just a couple of things that I just wondered about that I couldn't quite understand. On the actual strategy itself, on page 29, there's a table right at the top of page 29, and if I'm reading this correctly, we're looking at increased costs, and I just wondered why we got increases in the employees' costs and why they were so significant. And the other thing was, I just wondered what the figure of 430,000 for pressures was. And then the other bit was on page 33, section 9.1. I was looking at another table there, and the one thing I couldn't quite understand was on the forecast balance in the reserves for 2021, we've got a big increase in business rates reserve, and it says there in the narrative below that it's probably going to be closer to 1.5 million, and I just wondered whether that was a reference of the 7.5 being 1.5, or it meant something else, because I just couldn't quite figure it out, and I just wondered if we could get a little bit of explanation on that, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I'm going to do the second one first. I believe the 7509 is actually a true figure, but it's one of these. It's the day the thing's taken, and there's money not gone out. So it's next day it might be £1 million next day because money's been paid out. I think it's one of those. It's just a timing issue.
Right. Okay.
I believe. If I'm wrong, if Sarah could interject and say I'm wrong, but I believe that's the case, isn't it, Sarah?
Yeah, that's the case. So on the just going to the strategy, the first sort of question was about the employees, wasn't it? Councillor Waring, about the employee figures. Yeah, so we still have increments, and employees are on certain grades where we still have increments where the additional pressures will be coming in. So they might be on, say, grade 8, but at the bottom of grade 8. So as a council, they have increments. So that's where the additional cost will be. The second question about the pressures, was it the extra, 430,000?
Yeah, it was, Sarah. Yeah.
Pressures, yeah, is that right? So the additional pressures include things like we've got the Microsoft licenses, we've got £50,000 that we need to cover those. We've got £300,000 which relates to housing benefits. So we were unable to claim for all the housing benefit subsidies that we've received, and we have to account for a proportion of that. So that's a big chunk of that additional pressures there. And then we've got additional costs regarding provision for accommodation for homelessness as well, which is about £80,000. So we will be we're anticipating receiving additional funding relating to the homelessness. So as we progress through the actual final budget position, that may change slightly because of additional funding from central government regarding homelessness. Your other question was about the business rates. Was there, wasn't it on so I'm just whizzing down the table.
Page 33 of the report.
Page 33. Sorry, got lots of pages open. Yeah, so the business rates, the increase at the moment, that's the underlying position as it states is to the 1.5 million at the moment. As COVID progresses, we're still working on the scenarios relating to business rates and council tax support, and how businesses will react, and and obviously with council tax support, with people with their employment and moving forward as well. So that is still where we're doing our best guess and modelling on the best worst case scenarios relating to these reserves, but they are the forecast positions that we're anticipating at the moment. But like I say, they could still change. We'll have some more details around those forecasts after Christmas.
Thank you. I understand it now.
Are you completely satisfied, Councillor Waring?
Yeah, I'm absolutely, completely satisfied. Thank you. Excellent.
Well, what a fantastic read the MTFS report is.
Chair, could I just ask a
course.
question about the housing benefit subsidy, Sarah? I don't know whether it is your area or not, but why were we not to claim back all that we should have done?
It's to do with a housing benefit relating to homeless people, etc. There's an allocation in there where a council has to we can't recover it all from DWP, so we have to cover some of that proportion ourselves. In the past, we have always done this to a certain extent in the past, but I think now it is a budget pressure for us. We have sort of recognised this in the past sort of few years. We've been able to cover that within our budgets, whereas now things are getting much tighter. We've been more prudent about everything, and we're putting an allocation into the budget to be able to comfortably be able to cover those costs moving forward. So it is something that we've encountered before. It is something that we have to cover from a council perspective, but we are now providing a budget provision for this, where the figures every year do fluctuate depending on the number of cases. So it could vary. It could be higher, lower each year, but we're putting a set amount of budget allocation in there to be able to make sure that we've got provision. With not knowing what's going to be happening moving forward with people's jobs, etc., we might get an increase in the number of cases. So.
Thank you. Councillor Pickup, do you have anything further?
No, I just say it just seems a bit strange, but I suppose you've not got your housing revenue account any longer, have you? So general fund would have to pick it up. But is it just to do with homelessness then? Because it seems an awful lot of money.
It's in a proportion of I'm trying to think of it an easy way to explain it. Jan, can you think of it?
Jan, would you like to come in on this one?
Yeah, I'll attempt. So there are the DWP place limits on the amount of housing benefit we can subsidy we can claim, and where we are placing people in supported accommodation in particular, there's a significant difference between what we have to pay the provider and what we can recover from the DWP. And because we've seen a big increase in the number of people that we are putting into temporary accommodation, I think it's been particularly noticeable over the past year because we have been getting a lot of people off the streets as part of the Rough Sleepers initiatives, everybody in. So the gap between what we can recover from the DWP and what we have to pay our providers has widened very significantly over the past year. And that's our best guess of what the gap is going to be next year. But Sarah's quite right. This is not a new issue, that we've had a gap, in terms of that shortfall between what we pay and what we can reclaim for a number of years. But we've always been able to cover it through underspends elsewhere. And we just don't have that room for manoeuvre anymore. Everything's so much tighter, and the gap has increased, significantly. And it's not an amount, £300,000 is not an amount that we can just find, through fortuitous underspend somewhere else. And that's why we've built it into the MTFS going forwards.
Thank you for that, Jan. Not within the remit of this committee, but the Health, Wellbeing and Partnership Scrutiny Committee considered a report on a new temporary accommodation policy for the Borough Council, one that I think we are hoping will help us to meet those financial challenges. Does the current version or the current draft of the MTFS take into account that policy?
To the best of my knowledge, Chair, it does take account, but perhaps we need to just cross-check with our colleagues who deal with that policy, just to make absolutely sure.
Okay, that would be helpful, I think. Councillor Pickup, did you want to come back on any of that?
I was just going to say, if it is down due to COVID and the fact that we've had to take a lot more people off the streets, as Jan said, is there any grants or any allocation you can make towards it from the COVID monies?
Yeah, we have received some grants in the current year. And we have had some additional money announced as part of the comprehensive spending review for homelessness costs, but we haven't yet had our provisional settlement for next year, so we don't quite know at this stage how that's going to filter through, but it is possible that there will be some additional funding that we can offset. Obviously not COVID funding, because our expectation is that it will come to an end at the end of this financial year, with the exception of fees and charges, where the government have said that the current compensation scheme will be extended for the first quarter of the 21-22 financial year. But as far as the rest of the grant, COVID-related grant funding is concerned, we're not expecting any more allocations after this financial year. So I think, you know, it all depends on, you know, how much funding in that provisional settlement, which hopefully we'll have in the next week.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Sweeney, was there anything you wanted to add at that point? No? Excellent. Are there any further questions on the MTFS?
No.
I cannot see any forthcoming, so we'll move on then. Agenda item 6 is the revenue and capital budget. These are the first draft savings plans to close the financial gap in the forthcoming financial year. We'll start again with Councillor Sweeney, if you'd like to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'd love to. The Council's draft MTFS for 21-22 to 25 was endorsed by Cabinet on the 11th of November and indicated there's a budget gap of 1.790, which is what I've said before. However, after that, we've had the comprehensive spending review. The comprehensive spending review has resulted in the Council reducing the original MTFS gap from 1.790 million to 1.280 million. The comprehensive spending review on the 20th of November announced a public sector pay freeze, which will be imposed with the exception of those employees earning below the UK median wage of £24,000, who will be entitled to a £250 pay award. The council has 169 full-time employees who currently earn £24,000 or less, and therefore these employees will be entitled to £250 pay award, which will total £42 for the council. The MTFS had built in a pay award of 2.75%. Therefore, the pay freeze announcement saves the council £377,000. The spending review also announced an equitable sharing of local taxation collection losses between local authorities and the Treasury. Central government intend to use a scheme similar to the income compensation scheme and cover 75% of local government collection fund deficits. While we await further details, and assume that this will reduce the original gap by £39,000 in relation to council tax collection and £94,000 in relation to business rates. The announcement, now this is new, this is not what we were expecting, this is a bonus. The announcement also advised there will be an extension to the income compensation scheme for fees and charges to the end of the first quarter 21-22, which will help reduce the income pressures in the new financial year. Now we thought this was finishing at the end of the financial year. It's not, it's gone off the first quarter of next year. So if you like, this is money we'd be getting, which we weren't expecting to get. As previously stated, the original budget gap was 1.790 and it's now 1.280. There's another £5,000 on the capital programme financial assumptions, which takes it down to 1.275 million. So that's the gap we've got to fit. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the financial challenges the pandemic has raised, the council has commissioned a full review of the council services and how these services are provided. Now, I think we all know that any authority that stands still moves backwards. That's just the way of the world. If you don't do something about it, you go backwards. So this council has decided to do something about it. The pandemic has changed the goalposts in terms of creating more different demands on council services. In order to provide these efficiently and effectively, a one council programme will take place looking at work streams, including digital delivery, programme management, maximising efficiency and areas around customer focus. And for example, if you're a taxi driver and you want a taxi licence, at the moment you go to the depot 2 or 3 times. There's absolutely no reason on this earth why you need to go 2 or 3 times. You can go once. Yes, my name's John Smith. I'm the guy who's applying for this taxi. Job done. Everything else can be done online. That sort of thing. if you order your garden waste bin, now I did mine last week. I'm not particularly computer skilled or anything, but I could order my garden waste bin in 2 minutes flat from beginning to end, and I've done that. And these are massive savings to the council. Rotate that around to everywhere else. The idea is you phone up somebody, the person answers the phone, the person deals with you. They don't say, oh, that's interesting, I'll pass you on to such and such a person. They deal with you. Now there's a cost there, because obviously they've got to be trained on new things, they need new skills. And secondly, the computer systems need doing, programs need doing, things like this. So there's a lot of work to be done. There's a cost involved in that, obviously. But it's hoped that over the 3-year period, this council will save £922,000 a year, and that saving will go on forever. That'll be built into it. That's what it will save. And that's the sort of thing we're doing now to make this council sustainable in the future. So if you don't do anything, you just go backwards. Following a financial recovery board process and challenge sessions involving each of the portfolios, including cabinet members, EMT and heads of service, a number of savings and funding strategies have been identified as being both feasible and sustainable, resulting in a balanced budget for 21-22. The 10-year capital programme has been reviewed and updated. As you'll see from Appendix 2, funding via borrowing will be required for next year. The associated borrowing costs of the programme have been built into the MTFS. Final work around planned maintenance is currently being finalised and therefore will form part of the capital programme when finalised. An update of these works and associated costs will be provided in the January Cabinet report. Remember, this is the first draft of this. There's still work being done. This isn't the final thing. There's still work to be done. On a happy note, I'll take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sweeney. Are there any questions for Councillor Sweeney? Councillor Waring, I can see your hand is raised.
It's not really a question, it's more of a comment. I think that this process gets more and more difficult every year, and I think it's just amazing that the team managed to come back with a balanced budget with all the work that goes in, and I think that they should be commended for, you know, making this happen every year. It's a struggle, and you know, obviously we get some increased funding from the government here and there, but generally speaking, it's down to improvements in the housekeeping of the council and the implementation of more modern procedures and things. So well done to everybody who's been involved in it.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that. I think very well done. Obviously the finance team, because that's my portfolio, but everybody in general. But I think the finance team has done an absolutely superb job on this, and I think we're in front of the game on this now, where we need to be at the moment. Well done to everybody, Paul. I agree entirely with you.
Councillor Hutton.
A quick comment. What I would like to say is also echo those comments. What I really like about this is the branding of one council. So digital, it's not just about digital delivery, it's about the personal delivery as well, but it's all branded as one council. I think that's really important, because when you're selling something to our residents, it's nice to have a brand that you can put something behind. So that's an excellent logo. So well done on that item. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hutton. Councillor Tagg, did you say you wanted to raise something?
No, just to thank Councillor Hutton for his comments. I think, you know, talking about big ideas, well, this isn't really a big idea. This is an idea we developed from a previous one, which is the digital programme, which, as we know, been gathering momentum over the past couple of years. On the back of COVID, we've seen how we can do things differently, where resources can be used differently, and that will be the centre of the one council. But as you say, everybody that is in touch with the council should experience the same level of service. And as Stephen said, the back office should also be slick, lean to be able to deliver for the residents. I think just before people start saying, oh, this is a job cutting exercise, well, over the past 12 to 18 months, we've employed, you know, a numerous amount of posts in key positions that have been left vacant or salami-sliced in the past. So we can't be accused of cutting jobs. What we want is the right people in the right place with the right skills, and the one council philosophy will help us to do that going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Are there any other questions relating to the first draft savings plan? Councillor Pickup.
It was just a comment, really. I can't actually see the announcement that Councillor Sweeney made about the pay cuts. Sorry, not the pay cut, the pay freeze for public sector workers. Is that actually in this report? Because I can't see it anywhere, but I don't know whether I'm just missing it.
it was a government announcement, but if it is
But
included,
was it a recent one? That's what I'm wondering, and it's not been included, or?
Yes.
If I could.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Yes, it was under the comprehensive spending review that took place in earlier November, and in the report, I think it's under.
2.2
Yes.
of the report. Agenda item 6, 2.2.
Bottom of page 39.
Yeah.
I'll have to look for that. I can't see it on there. I don't know whether I'm just maybe not on the right page, but I'm not. I'm used.
Page 39, Sarah. Second point up.
So I'm used to using it on my iPad. I'm on my laptop.
Sorry.
As long as it's going to be reported generally, because I think that's important. That.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say a publicity point of view, but there've been some comments in the Sentinel, haven't there, about the way that this budget's sort of been managed, and I think it's a positive thing, because we are giving a pay increase to those people that are earning below 24,000. But I just wonder how have the unions responded to it? Have you had any issues from people that aren't going to get a pay rise this year? Is there any adverse comments from the unions at all?
Okay, I shall bring in Councillor Tagg, because it does fall within his portfolio area, but I'm aware that the front page, I think, of today's Sentinel relates to a motion discussed at the City Council next door last week in relation to public sector pay rises. But you're quite right, Councillor Pickup, while there is a public sector pay freeze as part of the CSR, those who are on the lowest wages will be receiving an uplift. Councillor Tagg.
Nothing to exactly you just said, Mark, actually.
My
apologies. I think we're obviously always listening and speaking to our unions, and this hasn't been raised as an issue. Of course, again, national bargaining takes place, doesn't it, more than local bargaining on pay. So again, this is a government announcement, and I think it's created a stories in the press, but none associated with this council.
Okay, is there anything else on that? Can't see anybody's hand raised, so we shall move on to the next item if we can. Item number 7, the financial performance review, the quarterly report. Councillor Tagg, do you have anything to raise before we dive into this one?
Yeah, just introduce the report, Chair. Obviously, this is for July to September. Obviously, we were still just emerging from the first lockdown at this point, but I think it's a very pleasing set of targets and indicators. 82%, as it says in the report, are on target. Those 3 indicators are on, covering the amount of residual waste from households. That's gone up, of course, because the the food waste collections were being put in with the residual waste, so that added to the weight of those. Then the missed collections, it says in the commentary there. Again, we did have a number of new teams and people coming into the service because of people off isolating or shielding. So that created obviously confusion out on the rounds, but not too significant. And it says on the top of the other page that significantly dropped after into September, when all the streams except food were back up and running, etc. on that one. And I think the third one, if I can find the third one, is in customer services. I think obviously the reason for that one during this period is we had the election canvass, as well as the obviously the COVID issues, more people contacting us because they couldn't come into this office, and then of course the bedding in of the new recycling service, but that has now come back down on target. The good news, and there's plenty of it in this, is the planning results. I think all the indicators for planning are really good for the second quarter in a row. The council he'd be praising the staff, and I will do that now. Praise the staff for the way they're handling the planning department at the moment. Sickness absence, even though it's only slightly below what we've targeted for, I think it's a good news story, particularly as we were going through, the COVID, just coming out of the COVID lockdown in the first part of this. So to get that, it was anticipated to go up, but it didn't. Our website, it just shows when we talk about One Council and the online digital approach, our website is going strength to strength, and it's really our old website, because we're planning to have a revamped website, which is even more customer user resident friendly. So that will only get better in the months and years to come. And then finally, really, to shout about the markets, because even though it's only slightly above the target, given the circumstances of where we are with the lockdowns and the shops opening and the markets becoming operational again during this quarter, some of those percentages are amazing. 93% for the farmers market, 93% for one of the Tuesday antique forum markets. And I think it's really pleasing to see that. And I think this administration has put a lot of stall into doing the market ourselves. And Stephen, as the portfolio, along with our officers, has really brought that market on. I think if anybody was down there on Sunday, though it's not in this quarter, but our artisan market yesterday, even, was it?
Yes.
It was.
Is it Monday or Tuesday?
I got
You never know.
soaked.
Yesterday, we all got soaked, but it was really busy considering that. So it just shows when you have a theme market, something to draw people in, and more shops are opening on a Sunday as well, taking advantage of the free parking in Council Car Park. So I'm really pleased with 4.3 on the markets, and well done to everybody involved, including our market manager, who's excellent, Nick, and is really enthusiastic. He's running a brilliant social media operation, but as a testimony is some of those results of the percentage of the market that has been taken up for those special markets. But that's all I was going to say, Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions on performance.
Thank you very much for that, Leader. Councillor Sweeney, did you have anything you wanted to highlight?
I only just reiterate the town centre. It's all messed up with COVID at the moment, which is unfortunate. But yesterday it was hammering down with rain. It was an absolutely vile day, and yet hordes of people in the town at the market. You know, if you safely at the market, yeah, with social distancing, our marshals were on the place, and it was good to see. And imagine it being in the middle of summer. I mean, you're standing room only. But no, it was trim. And I said before about our town centre. Once the COVID area, it's gone, come and have a look at it, because there's so many little hidden treasures down the little side streets that people don't see if you don't have a look round. And I like a bit of food myself personally. I know me and my wife, we have a bit of a trail round every Saturday. We go for a different breakfast, a different place, and there's so many different options. And really, once go that, please come down to the town centre and have a look at it. It's transformed. I agree entirely with what the leader says about the officer in charge. I think he's really got the grips of it, and it just gives you such a buzz now, really, to see it as it is compared to what it was since we renationalised it. I think it's gone from strength to strength. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. We can do questions and comments on the report and on the financial position before we do the performance indicators. Does anybody have anything they'd like to raise on the report and the financial position first? No, in which case that is received with thanks. Looking then at the performance for quarter 2, the progress summary starts at page, well, the numbers are all
7.
It's a page, isn't it?
7.
Been overprinted several times. Councillor Hutton says 67, so it's about there. But starting from there, does anybody have any questions or comments they'd like to make on the performance indicators? Councillor Waring.
Yeah, my numbers are a lot different to yours, but on section 113, which is in relation to the human resources, obviously it looks a really encouraging figure. We're below the target despite us being in a pandemic. Does that figure include the people who are self-isolating?
Because they could still work.
Councillor Tagg, do you have an answer, or should we ask an officer?
Unless they were obviously had COVID, they're not ill, and I don't think I'm pretty sure none of those. I think if they were shielding, as Councillor Hutton has just jumped in and said, they will be working from home, so will still be working. And even if they were, say, a bin man shielding, for example, they were given some work to do, obviously to keep them churning over for us, so they weren't taken as a sickness in that respect.
That's very encouraging then, isn't it?
inclined to agree with you, Councillor Waring. Any other questions on the performance indicators while we're going through them?
Not a question, Councillor Holland, but merely just to say I think I ought to say how pleased I was with the planning indicators and how this is going in a very good direction. And again, I think, credit's where credit's due. Our new head of planning, I think the way he's looked at this has made a significant difference. So I think thanks to our planning team, and these do look very.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Fear. Councillor Proctor, your audio is crackling a little bit.
I think it was probably me turning pages over, Chair.
Excellent. Not so much we can do about that. Councillor Tagg, would you like to respond to
Councillor Fear's comments? I think echo them, and also I think the job of the planning committee, which of course he chairs, really has done a really good job of pushing applications through the process, whether it's to be turned agreed or rejected. I think what we see is a regular sausage machine of applications, some big ones really with big significance for the borough being put through by a very efficient planning committee supported by those officers which Councillor Fear has talked about. I think working from home hasn't affected the Sarah service, obviously, because they're working on their applications just as efficiently as when they were in the building. But I think going forward, we can say we've got a really good team there. And then, as Councillor Fear has said, our new head of planning has really bedded in well, and Sean is doing an excellent job for us, and the evidence is here.
Thank you very much, Leader.
Can I make a comment, a
yes,
general comment, Chair, if I may? I'm, other than Councillor Grocott, I'm probably one of the youngest councillors with the least service on this council. And so I have been observing this council and the transition from the previous leadership team, some of which I missed when I joined the council. But can I commend the chief executive and the rest of the new leadership team, generally speaking, because I'm a retired management consultant, and I was quite an expert in the public sector in looking at efficiency savings. And I believe this council is incredibly well run. So I know some of this is down to the cabinet members supporting the senior leadership team, but very much of it is down to the chief executive's leadership of his team, and that being passed down. So I'd just like to say thank you very, very much for all the hard work you've put in, because it shows. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments, Councillor Hutton. The Chief Executive, Mr Hamilton, is with us this evening, although he is on mute, so I'm sure he's heard that. Are there any other comments from members of the committee on the item that we're looking at now? Excellent, we can move on. Thank you very much then for those figures and for introducing Councillor Tagg. The work programme is item number 8, starting at page 75. Again, I think I'm looking at the same numbers as everyone else, but it's possible that Councillor Waring can see different numbers. They're all good numbers though, Councillor Waring. Fantastic. You've got simply the best numbers. You've never seen numbers as good as this.
Well, my numbers are bigger than yours.
The work programme going forward then, we discussed briefly at the start of the meeting an item in abeyance relating to procurement. Other than that, we have a meeting coming up in January to do pre-budget scrutiny. That's on the 18th of January. But for the work programme, does anybody have any items they would like to add for consideration at future meetings? Yeah, the list of things that are within the remit of the committee appear at page 75 for your information. Councillor Waring.
There's just one thing, Chair. Some time ago, we were discussing the property portfolio, and I believe that we were going to do an exercise into looking at how what was the potential for the for improvements to be made on the council portfolio with a view to maximising the revenue. Now, I don't know whether that was actually put in place and carried out, because obviously things have become a little bit disjointed with the COVID issue. But if that hasn't been done, I think it is an exercise that would be worth looking at, so that we could see whether there was a potential to increase the income by spending relatively small amounts on the property. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Waring. Sounds eminently sensible to me. Does our officer have any comments that she would like to make?
Yeah, yes, that piece of work that Councillor Waring was referring to, it did take place. The commercial portfolio was reviewed. We did look at the assets that we currently hold, just to see whether they were actually making revenue, or whether they were costing more than they were actually making for us, and what the repairs of those needed to take place to enhance that revenue. When we discussed the capital programme earlier in the agenda regarding the MTFS and the proposed savings that we're making at the moment, part of that work that we're doing on the 10-year capital programme is to look at sort of planned maintenance across our assets across the council. And the property team have done quite a lot of work looking at those assets that we hold, and they're building some of that repair requirements into the 10-year capital programme. And that's a bit that we're just working on this week, just finalising, just to ensure that we can maximise the rental income from those commercial portfolios. But that piece of work has been undertaken, and we are sort of building those results into the 10-year capital programme.
Thanks, Sarah. Through the chair, I mean, obviously I'm really pleased that it's happened. I think it might be useful for us to get a little bit of information on it at a later date, just so that we can see, you know, the effectiveness of it. But thanks very much for your answer, Sarah.
Thank you, Councillor Waring, and thank you, Sarah. Councillor Tagg.
I think on the back of what Councillor Waring has said, that's a very good idea. We could certainly provide it as at the next meeting as an update from Cabinet, or even a report in its own standing for you to do that. So we'll look into that, Paul, and thank you for the suggestion.
Okay, well, I'm either way contented with that, whether it forms part of the next update from Cabinet or whether there is enough there to constitute a standalone report. That then will come in front of us at a future meeting. Are there any other items that members present would like to raise? That again is silence. I've seen our officer Jan has hoved into view. You have something that you wanted to add at this point?
I've just popped up. Yes, Chair, it was just a question about the Bradford Crematorium extension, just to check whether the committee is still expecting to receive a report on that. It was on the work programme for September, but the report wasn't ready in time. And that proposal is out to consultation, but can I just check whether the committee want to retain that on the work programme and have it rescheduled at a later date?
Thank you, Jan. You have reminded me about that piece of work, and now it's out for consultation. The things that we might have wanted to discuss have moved on somewhat. It's not something that we can apply pre-scrutiny to, so it is now something that is underway. I don't know whether or not members would like us to see a later stage report on that, or whether we should hold fire. What are the thoughts among committee members? It's okay not to have thoughts? You don't have to have thoughts? Councillor Tagg has thoughts. Would you like to share them?
Yeah, just when you said it's out to consultation, it's not until January. So perhaps at your March meeting, if there is an update, again, it could be brought on the back of obviously what comes out of that consultation and any future cabinet report. So I would just say it's out to consultation isn't true.
Okay, that's a correction then. So this is a matter that will be going out to consultation in January. We're going to meet before then, but if at our March meeting we receive an update from Cabinet, just an item to say what the outcome of the consultation was, then we as a committee can make a judgment as to whether or not we want to do something more extensive on that. So is that helpful to our officers in shaping the future agenda? We will just expect an update from Cabinet at our March meeting. Councillor Rout, I can see your hand is raised. I can't see you on my screen, but hopefully I'll be able to hear you. Councillor Rout.
That's probably lucky for you, Mark. I was going to say exactly what you've just said, and I endorse your conclusion there.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rout. Are there any other comments, any other questions? And I don't think there are any other items then for the work programme. Item number 9 on the agenda is public question time. I haven't received notice of any questions. Have our officers received any questions from the public? I will take that as a no.
No questions received, Chair.
No questions received. Okay, I can see that there are 3 people watching on the live stream, none of whom have added any discussion into the YouTube chat. So I have nothing at all to raise under that item. Item number 10 is urgent business, to consider any business considered urgent within the relevant section of the relevant act. Do we have any urgent business? No. Our officer will tell us now if there is any. Excellent, no urgent business. The date of the next meeting is the 18th of January. Again, this may be a hybrid meeting, or depending on how things pan out with the pandemic, it could well be a meeting held in person, but we don't know at this stage. Thanks to everyone for attending. For those of you who are in the room, I wish you a safe journey home. And because this is the last time this committee will meet before Christmas, I'd like to wish everybody, officers and members, a very Merry Christmas and a happy 2021. Thank you very much. That concludes tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Bye now.